Longtime fans of the show should be familiar with the lender formerly known as Sue Pullen, and I'm pleased to announce that she's back, fresh off a rebrand and ready to help as Sue Mackey. Sue is a certified mortgage advisor at Fairway Independent Mortgage, an equal housing lender who focuses on finding the right product for you and your needs. She has over 20 years of experience helping thousands of homeowners. Whether it's purchasing, refinancing, or even a reverse mortgage, Sue will help. Sue's licensed in 36 states now, so reach out and let Sue Mackey it happen for you. The best way to reach her is just give her a call at 520-977-7904 or in an email, spullen@fairwaymc.com. Fairway Independent Mortgage has an MLS number of 2289. Sue Mackey has an MLS number of 206048. That email again, spullen@fairwaymc.com, and that phone number is 520-977-7904. Shoot Sue an email and let her know she needs to update that address. Disclaimer time. This is where I tell everyone to lighten up. It's just a podcast. Trading is like that roller coaster at the amusement park. Thrilling, unpredictable, and potentially stomach-churning. What works for one person might leave another clutching their hat in the wind. Our hosts and guests, they're awesome, knowledgeable, full of insights, but we're not financial advisors. So don't rush to make any investment decisions based solely on our banter. Always consult with a professional or do your own research. Plus, let's face it, we like to have fun, laugh, enjoy the trading ride together. It's all in the name of good podcasting fun. So remember, take it easy, don't bet the farm, and keep your seatbelts on at all times. Thank you for listening. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the China Shop, home of the Band of Traders podcast, and sometimes referred to as the Top Step Takedown Artists. I'm your host, Kyle, and tonight I am joined by Vanta Trading's Baba Yaga and Mr. Banks. On tonight's episode, we'll be discussing the concept of having a plan to follow your plan, as well as taking a look at how our profitable traders measure progress. After that, we will look at our past week in the good, bad, and ugly before wrapping up with some new bold predictions. Before we check in on who, if anyone, correctly guessed the high last week, let's get some self-promotion stuff out of the way. And Baba, I'm going to let you take this one to kick things off because you got some big news to share with us tonight.
News on the home front, big news. All right, so a couple of big things. One change that we made is in Vanta. We alluded to it before. We solidified it, and now we are rolling it out or have rolled it out. So we have changed our membership to $35 a month to make it more accessible to traders who are trying to find their way in this adventure of trading. Banks and myself and Kyle, we just spent some time talking about it. Felt like it's what we wanted to do. And then we also moved all of our video content from the last year to the free side of the server, which means if you just join the shop, the China shop, the server, the Vanta server was traditionally split into two places. You can see all of our recordings from the last year, and any future recordings that we do will be there too. That'll be the home of any content that we make. It'll always be publicly accessible, which is awesome. And then we also landed a promo deal. So if you have heard of or have not heard of the company Prop Alpha, who creates some pretty cool tools on Sierra charts, of some of which I used, they made for me, which is cool. We have a promotional deal with them. You're going to have to come to the Discord to find out what the actual promo code is, but it's 50% off of your first month of their service. We don't make anything off of it. We're just literally passing along a chunk of savings to anyone in the room. So come check it out to find out what the code is and save yourself some money if you're interested in a tool set.
Love it, dude. Love it. Be hard for me to top that, but I'll give it a try. One of the other things that we decided to do, though, as added bonus for these Vanta subscribers is we're going to give them access to these recordings before they air. So as a thank you, you'll be able to listen early and without ads. I will get that set up over the weekend, and hopefully we'll have that long-awaited Vico episode ready to go before market opens on Tuesday. And I don't really feel like reading the rest of my script, so just check the show notes. We'll make sure all the links are there. I do want to take a minute, too, just to kind of talk about the energy in the Discord and how it's been lately. It's been freaking phenomenal, man. There's been a lot more participation, and it's just been a joy to be a part of that. I just want to say, thanks to everybody who's contributing and opening themselves up and sharing their ideas, because that's how we learn.
Yeah, 100%. I second that. It's not that it hasn't been fun before, but it's been super fun lately.
Feels like momentum's starting to build, and that's kind of what we're hoping to achieve.
Yeah, it feels like that. It feels like people are engaging. You mentioned this outside of us in a way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So instead of feeling like having to spurn the conversation along at times, there's just a lot of organic interaction in the room, which is fun to see. And then we've gotten some really kind comments and words from some newer members, which is awesome. So we truly appreciate it.
All right, enough tooting our own horns then. Let's check in on last week's bold predictions and see how terrible we did. Baba, do you remember what you predicted?
Oh, I predicted. We all predicted with macro what the new all time high would be.
Was anyone close?
No, I don't know. I'd have to go back in my notes to find it, but I think I actually have it drawn on my chart.
18446.25.
Yeah, 18,446.25, which in fact
That was bold.
did not hit. In case you were wondering, did not hit.
What was the high
Of this past week?
Yeah.
18,122, I think.
Yeah,
121.
121.50.
That's about 300 points away. That's slippage on NQ, right?
Yeah.
Macro actually had 18,600, so you were closer than he was at least.
Yeah.
I did mine on the Qs. I said 442.91. I'm pretty sure the high was not even 440, so I think I'm out too. Pretty sure we all overshot it this week.
Well, they've given us it's easy to believe that higher was in the cards. It's not like the Bears have given us anything to write home about lately, so.
No, they have not. Stick around to the end. We'll make sure we have another round of bold predictions. I think what are we gonna do this week? We're gonna try to predict the jobs numbers for Thursday, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, I need to look at the forecast of it.
I know, right? I think now it's time to kind of figure out what our first topic is. So this one, we may not spend a whole lot of time on this one because I'm not sure how this is going to go over. I'd recently finished recording an interview with Dan Pesarelli that'll be coming out in a couple of weeks. And he mentioned the idea or something that he tells his new traders. And he mentioned the idea of having a written plan for following your plan. And I know, Baba, you've talked a lot about trying to narrow the gap between your results and your trading plan. I'm curious if that's anything you've ever kind of considered.
Okay, so narrowing the gap, making a plan to follow your plan. I kicked this around in my brain just a little bit. And at first I was like, that just sounds like extra, let's just have another phrase to talk about being responsible. And I think in some ways there's a little part of me that kind of just wants to say, you have to begin the process of mastering yourself, whatever that looks like. And with trading, that looks like having a plan, but then sticking to the plan. So for me, I think I don't have a written plan to follow the plan, but I do write a couple of things to remind me to pull my head out of the sand. I think is what the way Rich Friesen said it, or to pull my head up and look around.
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes we'll have a handful of key spots that are pretty important. But as price starts to go, and you've been around long enough, it's easy to have this feeling lately it's been, I don't want to short here because we've pulled off so far. But contextually, and sometimes that's the right, I would say oftentimes that is correct. Better safe than to get it rammed back in your face. But contextually, there can be places where we open, obviously, even if it's towards the bottom of a rotation and we still see additional downside that maybe is, or vice versa, upside. So for me, one of the things that I write is just to help me remember to pull my head up and review what did I think was important before I had any emotions tied up in this and money was on the line. So I think that would be one thing. Maybe not a written plan to follow my plan, but I do write down something to help me remember. So
I wonder if maybe what he was referring to is new traders don't really know what a good plan is going to entail, right? And there's other aspects that a good trading plan should entail. Things like risk management, what are you going to do when you encounter certain scenarios? And if you haven't considered those, then you don't want to be trying to consider them in the moment when the emotions are charged, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's almost like it may just be a stopgap or something to help somebody who's first starting out, to get them to consider other things.
Yeah, I'll tell you now that we're kind of kicking this around, like if I'm ever when I'm feeling a little unsettled or kind of a little like, I'm not sure what I want to do here, a lot of times I'll just start talking to Banks directly on chat.
Hmm.
Like I don't know if you noticed, but I'll just say like, Banks, what are you seeing here? Or Banks, what do
Yeah,
you think
yeah.
about this? Or tell me I'm crazy for trying to bid this, or should I, tell me, tell me this scale's worth taking off here versus leaving a runner. Um, so I think it's not really following my plan so much as it is leaning on something that's helpful, which kind of goes in line with that.
It's talking through the ideas,
Yeah.
I guess, to try to get a rational point of view on it rather than just what you think or want. That it's like a gut check almost
Yeah.
in that scenario.
Yeah. So, to the question, I would think that as a new trader, I think it's probably a good thing
Hmm.
that he's preaching that. And the reason why I say that is because it almost like makes you double down on your plan to begin with.
Mm.
So, in essence, it's kind of like if you're a kid and you're doing homework, it's like doing the problem twice. If you go about doing it twice, it's almost like it instills it into you that like that's what you need to do to be successful.
Right.
And I think that's just like it's kind of like step one of the process. I would say, and I would even say a lot of people don't even have written plans, kind of like what they're saying in chat. So like
I know,
if you're
right?
writing a plan, if you're writing a plan and then you're writing to which I don't fully understand the concept of like writing about your plan. I would think more of the aspect of kind of what we preach of like the like following your plan to the emotional side.
Hmm.
To where like when you're writing stuff down, if you have a spot and you take a shot there, are you going to take it more than once?
Right.
Are you
Right.
going to double down in that area? So, and I think that's probably what he more thinks. I mean, if you have an area that you think is key and you take a stop, is it in your plan to fire 2 bullets?
Or
Or
3.
is it in your plan to just take that? Yeah, or 3 if it's going to be
How
successful.
are you going to manage your
And I think that's
stops?
probably,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's more what he's probably talking about is managing those areas of your plan,
Hmm.
not in essence like managing your plan of how you write it out or something like
Yeah.
I would think it's more along the lines of how you manage the actual trade within that key
I
setup.
think you're right because I look back at like the plans that I've created over the past 3 years, and like the first ones were just kind of thinking about like risk management. Okay, what's my daily stops? What's my daily targets? What setups am I allowed to trade? And not really thinking much more about like the execution. And as I've progressed on this journey, I think the plan has become a lot more robust as I've encountered a lot of these scenarios. But I think I would have been a lot better served if I would have sat down to sit and think about some of the different possibilities or the different things that I could have encountered to try to think of a way to how I'm going to react to that. Because at least having some idea of what I'm going to do, then I probably have a better chance of not doing something stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. I think having something like that, like writing, maybe it's in addition to your plan. A plan is usually pretty technical.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is really just numbers and lines, and then maybe a couple of words. So my plan's going to have kind of a couple of key levels, a couple of targets, and then I try to like you've been around. Like I try to map a couple of easy trades. Like hey, if we open here,
Yeah.
a quick run to here. This 30-40 point stretch right here should be easy to capture. Now, this week, a lot of times it was like OR low or high was one of those, it was like immediately, like we're finishing the
Right.
plan, flipping to execution charts and there, and it goes 40 points one way. And I'm like, well, we definitely, that was an easy trade. But to the point of like, what you were saying, Kyle, I wonder if, and I kind of, there's a couple people in our room I envy some of their execution is super clean. And I wonder if having some of that emotional stuff, so this deviates a little from the question or the concept,
Mm-hmm.
but still within the realm of this plan stuff. Even like writing to the point of that emotion, like Banks was saying, like, one of the things that I wrote this week a couple of times actually is just on the top ledger was the word pace. The pace of things has become more and more important to me as I've tried to scale like be real mindful of risk and just letting the pace of something be one of the determining factors as to whether I'm going to lean in or whether I'm going to, not when it starts to unfold. So I think maybe even having a couple of emotional or like mental notes in there, like, reminding yourself that a few stops is okay. Reminding yourself that 7 stops within a 5-point range is not okay.
Right.
And if you feel that finger is getting a little out of hand, clicky, 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 then what are you going to, if you've already written down that that's not how you want to execute, as you begin to lean into executing that way, maybe having written that would be kind of helpful for folks.
Yeah, I would think so. That goes back to kind of what we talked about with the journaling and identifying your triggers.
Yep. What's funny too is about triggers. I was talking to Banks about this earlier. One of my triggers is more and more becoming, which this is kind of deviation completely, but we'll run a little rabbit trail here. Is more and more becoming, if I'm in a trade where I have a plan to go to scale here and here, and then I scale here, and then I kind of have like a shoulder shrug exit, like, we'll take this off. And then, we, of course, inevitably, or not inevitably, but a lot of times if we go to that second target, that's really, that's me deviating from the plan and exiting just off of lack of whatever. Kind of a lot of times it's like, well, if I close this trade, I'm done for the day and I can be finished. So I'm just going to close this out and be done, which is fine because, hey, you're doing well. P&L's fine. That's good. But man, that can be a really frustrating thing. That's kind of the next little gremlin that's on my list. So maybe this plan to plan thing, maybe I'll write some stuff each day about that in my planning to execute my plan. Because that's one of the ways that I fail to execute it most often, I would say.
Yeah. Gives you something to keep it fresh in front of your mind as you approach the day. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Hey, that might feel good in the moment to kind of exhale and be finished, but you're going to be like kind of triggered at yourself when you go that extra 30 points and you left like, $600 or $1,200 on the table.
Right. Banks, any other thoughts on this one before we move on to the next?
No, I just think, like to Baba's point, and maybe this is something that I'll just chime in on his part, is I think a lot of those times where you try to fix those problems, you tend to like overcorrect. And there's a middle ground between there. Mm-hmm. So, when you have a option to go trade 30 points higher and you just let it run out, but you can tell that the market's changing, that's different. And I think today, and I'm talking about today because we talked about it. Mm-hmm. The one where you cut short and we went like
another 100 points.
100 points. It's
like 100 Cheers, folks. That's the story of my week.
And and I don't think that was. It wasn't to plan, but it was a Friday, and I think that was kind of the mindset that you had. And to be honest, like I think those are the ones that trigger you. But in all honesty, I'm not sure they should. It's to your plan, and your plan works out. It's just the P&L may not be as much as what you thought it should be. Right. But I don't think that means that it's and I know mentally it's hard to watch something go to where you're supposed, where you think it's going to go. Right. But you had the first part of the battle correct. You were right. Yeah. Now, the essence of, the profit taking, that's like its own little battle in itself. That's, step 2. And, I think in all honesty, you're close to that. But I think that is a trigger for a lot of people because, on a trend day, for instance, you're always going to leave, bullets on the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm not, trend days, we've talked about that, Kyle. Like, I've even said like, be fine. If you're trading truly with the strength of trend, like you're almost always going to leave money on the table, or you're going to get taken out on when a swing low gets taken out that you're kind of hiding behind or whatever. Yep. I made my peace with that. I think more to the point of in a market with this rotational, or at least we're seeing kind of wider swings. Like we have a couple days this week where we have kind of that wide balance activity, like just being a little, I agree with you, Banks. I can definitely overdo the hold on to it forever thing. and I worked on kind of coming the other way, like pulling the rubber band back and scaling sooner. And now I'm kind of trying to find that happy middle ground, but yeah, I think the thing that was frustrating specifically about that one today was, I mean, everything was like, we should go at least to here before we, roll off. And when I scaled early, the first thing I thought was, oh, well, I can scale ahead of this. If we take this high and pull back the support, I'll just get in again and take the ride a second time. And that was, obviously that didn't work out in my favor, but.
All right. So for next week, I got an idea for you.
I do too. It involves a lot more contracts.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, what I was going to say is if you have one where you peel it off and you kind of feel like you're in that same boat, throw on a micro from that same spot.
Yeah.
Put your stop where it was. And
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you did that actually. You did that last week, didn't you? Where you closed out a position.
Yeah, I did. I took off half.
Yeah,
I had a runner left, and so I just closed I had one runner left. I closed the standard lot and then opened 5 micros there. So I basically scaled half.
How'd you like that?
Oh, it was okay. I mean, it feels like
more work.
Feels like it's fine. I mean, it feels a little bit like just paying more commissions, honestly. But but it did keep me engaged, and I was able to scale half of the half, so a quarter more off.
And I don't even mean taking 5. Just throw on one. I mean, if you think it's going to come back and rebid, throw on one at the exact same spot, and then add to it at that place of rebid. If you don't get the rebid, then you were right to begin with.
Yeah, at least one micro lets you feel like you have a piece still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, anybody that's trading, like, look, guys, you're probably sitting there, hopefully, maybe you're sitting there thinking, my gosh, man, just close it and be fine. You're closing a trade that's green. I get it. Okay. Like, I understand that. But, I think we're all trying to perform at the highest level and at the highest level we can, at least. And like, this is a big part of, I mean, there's steps that you take forward in this journey. And just because you end a week green or just because you end a month green doesn't mean that, oh, well, I'm done. Now, all I do now from now on is just double the size and make double the money. Like it's not quite that simple in the sense. And so some of this is like just the challenges of trying to be continuously improving because we all have nuanced ways that we do and don't perform well. And, I'm the subject of conversation here on this one.
I think you just nicely segued into the next topic because this was one that I kind of wanted to bring up after reviewing some of the stuff from my journal this past week. Just want to know how you guys measure your progress and how that's changed since when you first started out to now. And if you want, I can give you kind of the Thursday, what led to some epiphanies that I had to kind of set the stage for this, but
sure.
Yeah, set the stage, man.
All right, so I had a kind of a rough Thursday. This is going to be foreshadowing my good, bad, and ugly here. There was a couple of instances that stuck out when I sat down to journal after the day. One of them was noticing that when trades that look like they should pay don't pay, that is a trigger for me. That's going to cause me to do stupid things. The other one...
When you sized up for no reason or whatever in a revenge fashion?
No, because I actually noticed that, and that's why I stopped. No, it was the moving of the take profits. I noticed that when I have a little bit of a hole to dig out of because I fired some shots that didn't work out, that I'll find myself trying to press the scales to unreasonable amounts. One of the trades that I took on Thursday actually hit 2 or 3R, but I was shooting for 4, and then it comes back and knocks me out, and then that triggers me more, and then it just kind of leads to a bit of a spiral. But the epiphany that I had was looking back, and I messaged Baba about this. A month ago, this day would have been 300 points in the hole. Today, Thursday ended up being 140, I think it was. A month before that, or 2 months before that, it would have been 500 points in the hole. And then, 3 to 6 months before that, it would have been a blown account. So there's progress being made, and I recognize that. And I'm just kind of curious how you guys track that. Because sometimes it's hard to see how far you've come when the gains sometimes can be kind of small and over time. Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely incremental gains over a large period of time.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely there's definitely big steps forward. I it's easy to look now. Let's say like go back 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, completely different, like night and day, you know. But I think I don't know. One of the ways that I tend to measure now, and I don't know if this how long this has been, but it's definitely I'm measuring a lot of stuff, and this might sound weird, measuring a lot of stuff off of how I'm feeling
Mm-hmm.
and thinking about what I've done.
Interesting.
So, meaning if I have a great day, am I over the moon, excited, happy, thrilled, joyous, whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, unless it's some type of record, I want to see myself responding like, eh,
That was nice.
like I don't like, yeah, good day,
Mhm.
like not super great, not super, just all right, good job. So when I find myself overly celebrating, sometimes not that like get on voice with everyone's like, oh man, I'm not like that, but like after I'm done and I'm off, if I find myself finding too much happiness or enjoy out of my success, then I am letting a little bit too much of that define who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I'm trying to be real mindful of that because I perform much better when the markets are emotionally at arm's length.
That makes a ton of sense. So your main focus for tracking your progress now is trying to just measure the emotional swings.
Yeah, how am I engaging with myself as I relate to the markets?
How has that changed over the years then?
Well, I mean, that's a hard one to make. You're talking about changing your character and personality to some extent because I think everybody wants to be excellent at something so they can be a big hero. Look at YouTube and Twitter and the way and what the
Mhm.
personalities are that are out there. It seems to be that more often than not, we are lured over to want to define how good we are at life by how good we are at whatever our job is or
Mhm.
whatever we're doing, in this case, trading. I think there was a point where I thought I thought the sun rises and sets on how this goes for, how I do every day. And then some of that, honestly, a little bit resurged over this
Mhm.
recent couple of months of challenge where I'd find myself overly introspective about my dealings with the market, my attitude, my perspective, overly identifying with my success, overly identifying with a failure or a bad day or just a not as good of a day. I think one thing that changed is just the awareness of that. Just being aware of that as a thing changed somehow I track like my progress because once I was aware of that and some of the implications of that, and that was a lot of stuff from Rich Friesen stuff from a couple years ago or so when I first ran across that. Because dude, this is gonna sound, I don't know, it is technical from the standpoint of like you have to know your market, you have to know rotation size, you have to know market structure, you have to know pace, like you have to know if the market is moving the way that you anticipate it should be moving based on whatever your criteria is. Yes, there's all these technical skills, but performance is not, for me, is not hinging anymore on some skill set I need to go acquire.
Right.
Right. And so I think for me, there's some like emotional, mental skill sets that I am, grinding. But when it comes to like the charts and the technical side, I don't feel like that. So I think measuring progress for me now is less about like learning something new per se. If anything, it's an app. It's how to apply something a little better. But yeah, that's a long answer to that question. But for me, it's much more tied to like how I'm interacting and thinking and feeling and how the market and my performance is or is not affecting like my personality and
Mhm.
my attitude towards myself and towards like life in general.
I'll probably have to come back to that in the good, bad, and ugly because it sounds eerily similar to some other notes that I wrote for tonight.
Interesting.
But Banks, I want to give you a shot to share some stuff here.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall in general, so like, in trading, you almost have to be like when you first start, like overly addicted. And what I mean by that is like you almost like live,
Yeah.
breathe trading. And if you're not like that, obviously, I know people who have had success like that, but I feel like most traders get into it. First thing in the morning, you want to see where the market is.
Mm-hmm.
You're watching it overnight. You're trying to, learn and, pick up every tool, the perfect indicator,
Yep. The quest for the perfect and yep.
whatever you want to get into. But, then it gets to a point where you actually start putting money on the line and, you lose an account or blow up an account and it starts affecting work. It starts affecting your personal life. And just like what Bob was talking about, like the process of getting to a point where it almost doesn't bother you. It's almost like, when you have a bad day, it's like, that sucked, but it's not
Right.
going to kill me. And then, when you have a good day, you want to celebrate, like, if you have a funded account and you pull out money, like, we tell people like, pay yourself, like go buy something with it, because that's like the first step of you feeling like you've accomplished something. And I think in trading, you kind of start at a process where you come into trading saying, can I do this?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a little bit, success. And then all of a sudden it's that point of, I need to prove to everyone else that I can be successful. And I think that's a hard part in the trading process because you are comparing yourself to other people that you see.
Right.
And I think, when you see people and it happens a lot with new traders is, you see people online that are, doing the Lambos and shit like that. And, I would say 95% of traders aren't that way.
Yeah.
Or I would even say more than that, maybe even 99%. Just normal guys just grinding it out.
Right.
And, the process from getting from that new step of, developing yourself as a trader, developing yourself as, how your character is, how your personality is, what type of trader you want to be, I think is a hard process to get along. But I mean, every trader goes through it.
Mm-hmm.
And now I would say, we went from, I just hope I can make $50 a day or $100 a day. You kind of get into a point where you're basing your success off of P&L.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the times I kind of base my success off of like when you do have a red day, does that come home with you?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know when it happened in the past, like, I'd have my wife be like, what is wrong with you today?
Oh
Well,
God,
I
I
didn't
know.
want to tell her like, hey, I just blew up my accounts today,
Right.
and had a shitty ass day. But again, I don't, when I come home on a winning streak, like I don't want it to be overly enthusiastic. Now, when you have success and you pull out money, like I said, I mean, you still want to be able to celebrate and do nice things and whatever. But that it's a hard question to answer because I think it's based off of the individual.
Mm-hmm.
And where they are
Yeah.
in their journey. Because if you're still trying to like dig out what makes sense to you in the market, then the answer to this question would be a lot different. But your question was how am I measuring my progress
Mm-hmm.
now? And now my progress is measured much differently. And to Banks's point, his is as well. Now that doesn't mean that if I have a rough day, I'm going to be like, dang, I wish I would have performed better, especially if my rough day is tied to, again, lack of execution of the plan or stay in the course to like what the ideas were.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be disappointing, but it's not the P&L that frustrates me there as much as it is the performing side of it, if that makes sense.
It's the disappointing in yourself. Yeah. I've
Yeah, it's like the discipline, the lack of that, those kind of things that still will kind of get me ticked. I mean, and everybody has some things about their job, whether it's trading or whatever, that can get them tilted, and that's part of what we talk about being mindful of, like the things that precede you doing something really stupid, being mindful of what those things are, so you can, keep yourself from diving headfirst into that situation as the first little indications in your mind start to click that like you're starting to get on tilt a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think I think the fun thing for us is like Banks and I have gone through this whole journey together since literally the first futures trade I ever made. We were probably on the phone together when I clicked the button. And so it's easy for us to kind of reminisce on like this journey that we've been on and be like, wow, we're way different. We think about it differently. We execute differently. We measure success differently. Like if you think about my goals for this first quarter, maybe this first half of this year, they weren't tied to a certain amount of money or P&L or any of that kind of stuff. It was narrowing the gap between the performance and the plan, the application of that in real time, that gap, bringing that lower and lower. Now that should result in a better P&L, but I'm not. That's not the end all be all. Isn't that? It's performing well, and that's defined by executing appropriately within the bounds of my work. The P&L will follow.
Yeah.
This week I didn't have an idea of where my P&L was until yesterday.
Longtime fans of the show should be familiar with the lender formerly known as Sue Pullen, and I'm pleased to announce that she's back, fresh off a rebrand and ready to help as Sue Mackey. Sue is a certified mortgage advisor at Fairway Independent Mortgage, an equal housing lender who focuses on finding the right product for you and your needs. She has over 20 years of experience helping thousands of homeowners. Whether it's purchasing, refinancing, or even a reverse mortgage, Sue will help. Sue's licensed in 36 states now, so reach out and let Sue Mackey it happen for you. The best way to reach her is just give her a call at 520-977-7904 or in an email, spullen@fairwaymc.com. Fairway Independent Mortgage has an MLS number of 2289. Sue Mackey has an MLS number of 206048. That email again, spullen@fairwaymc.com, and that phone number is 520-977-7904. Shoot Sue an email and let her know she needs to update that address.
Oh, is it time to go to the good, bad, and ugly then? Because I feel like you're itching to talk about this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because I think this is a good one, right?
There's some good, there's some bad and some ugly in it, but yeah, it's still a really good week.
I think it was still a pretty good week. And plus, I want to hear more about Banks's week from hell.
Yeah, he's got to talk about his bad from a couple weeks ago.
Let's do it. Who wants to go first? Should we let Banks catch us up?
Yeah, Banks, tell us your story, buddy.
I'm guessing you want the bad. Or the ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got 3 weeks to play with here, but
Well, I'll stick with the one day within those 3 weeks. It all happened in one day. So I come home. I come home from work. I forgot to tell you this. I lost a loan deal at work to another bank that day.
no.
Yeah, come home from work. Garage door breaks, spring breaks. So I'm like, well, I'll fix it, whatever. So I go to lift it up, and I was like, dude, I can't do this. So I go around the side of the house, the back of the house to the front to go, lift it up.
Now you had already been home, parked cars in the garage.
Yeah, my car was in the garage.
Got into comfortable clothes, and then started this, correct?
Yeah, and I'll mention this. I did not have socks on when all this was happening because that's a big important part of this.
Yeah, bare feet.
So bare feet. I walk around the back of the house and proceed to step in dog shit.
Oh God.
And I was like, oh, well, it's, once I got to the concrete, I was like, well, I started to feel it. And I was like, man, I got some, well, and I didn't know at the time. So I thought it was mud. It rained the day before. So I get to the concrete, and I was like, well, I'll pick this mud out. And I pick it out, and it's dog shit on my finger, just bare, So, yeah. And then, so I had to pay, $350 to fix our garage after Kyle talked me into having it fixed. So I appreciate that.
I'm
Kyle.
really glad you didn't try to do that yourself, because goddamn, those spring packs can kill a man.
Yeah, I watched a video of a guy like almost losing a limb doing it, and I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. So, but yeah, so in essence, my garage door broke, lost a loan deal, stepped in dog shit, got out of my finger. It was pretty bad. I didn't say it was ugly.
There's some other, you also had like a real shit trading day that day too, I think too.
Yeah, I pretty much had a daily draw.
Which is basically everything that could go wrong, dude.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Yeah.
So you had to have some good during this time, though, right?
I guess. I mean, I had some good trading days. like this week, for instance, I was kind of, and I talked to Bob about this. I was kind of all over the place. I've been super busy at work, and so I've been kind of in and out of the chats and stuff like that. So, but in essence, trading was good this week. I wish I had a good like getting those Top Step X accounts like Baba does, but for $4.
I can't wait to
But
hear more. I'm gonna tease Baba on this one.
yeah, I'll let Baba go. I mean, I didn't have anything super great. I mean, I had some good days, some okay days in trading wise, and but I'm better than stepping in dog shit, so I guess that's better in general. So
Everything should feel good after
yeah,
that.
it's 100% better than that. So
Yeah. Okay, Baba, go ahead.
Okay. So this was a good week. My good for the week is we just talked about not measuring P&L, but as far as your success, but I think it's tied directly to my execution and kind of the work that I've been putting in. And honestly, dude, like some of the conversations we've had, like you and I, Banks, going back to even like a couple weeks ago, and the last couple weeks have been just the last 3 weeks or so, I've just had a much better mindset and attitude with regard to trading and some of the recent, challenges I've been through. So this week was really good, man. I had a kind of light and carefree, positive attitude. Stayed reasonably within my bounds of my work for the most part for this week, and this would be the largest P&L week that I've had since like November, I guess.
Damn.
So
Congratulations, dude.
yeah, appreciate it. And I didn't really realize that until like yesterday. So,
That's probably the best case scenario, though, right?
yeah, I mean, I knew things were going well because I mean, you can tell, but I don't super hawk my P&L during the day, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad. I pay most attention to it early, and then after that, whatever. If I take a few stops, I'll be like, okay, where are we at here? And if I'm in in a trade, I've gone back and forth on this, but I do think that like being mindful of like getting yourself to a place where you're like a little bit more stable, and if you took a couple stops and stability would be found in cleaning that up, then that's like that's obviously something to be mindful of. But generally speaking, I'm not looking at it that much, so it felt really good to zoom the lens out and be like, oh man, this is really, we're on a heater this week, big time. And so yeah, it came in. So that's my good for the week, I guess.
You have any plans for next week are you concerned about having a really good week and then following that up, or should I not even mention that?
No, I mean, you can mention it. That's fine. So that was the good for the week. The bad for the week was that today we traded this morning. I was up I don't know. I was up a handful of points, 30 points, 40 points. Nothing huge in my normal account. I didn't want to, I wasn't trying to set a record. I don't usually trade that much or that big on Fridays. I mean, I'll take normal trades, but I'm very rarely leaning in on a Friday.
Yeah, usually you're sized down and trade micros.
Yeah, usually size down trade like less than half of what a normal position size would be. Today I just traded probably half of what a normal position would be. I was still trading standard lots, but nothing crazy like twos, and that was pretty much it. So traded, finished. I was like, all right, cool. Went and did some run around with my wife. Had a good time. Went to lunch. Came back, took another trade, which was another good trade. That's the trade I was talking about that I had a target in mind for a runner. I cut that short just because I was like, oh, it's Friday. What are you doing? Just cut this off and then just rebid it later, like when it pulls back. And that was at 215, 230. And I don't know if you saw what happened at 244, but someone said or did something that no one in the world liked. And so the market just, the bottom fell out, and so the bad was that I tried to rebid that move in a couple of key spots and kind of curmudgeoned the day, but the week was still, a great week, even in spite of that. So
If you would have joined us for M period, you would have been in sim mode and would have not done anything silly.
Yes, that's true. That happened. It was just before M period, but when that happened, and then I was like, all right, well, we're not looking at this anymore. So, yeah. And then the ugly was, it's kind of hilarious, I think. And this might be what you wanted to make fun of me about. So Top Step did this thing where they were going to give away all these accounts, and I was like, oh, well, I'll put my name in the hat. Why not, right? So they giving away like giving away the chance to buy 50K combines for like $5 a piece, which is awesome. And it was really just, I guess, to stress test Top Step X. Well, everyone in the room was talking about it because, so whenever it came time on their thing to go put your stuff in, I went and put my stuff in, thought nothing else about it, asked Banks, like, how will I know if, and he's like, oh, let's send you an email, whatever. And I got the email. So I was like, oh, well, let's turn one of these on and figure out this platform. So during the morning show on Fridays, we do it on the shop side. So after I traded my account for a few trades and made a chunk of points, I fired up the old Top Step X and I was like, let's figure this out. And dude, I mean, y'all must have thought I had never seen a chart before. I've been on Sierra so long. Like I couldn't figure it out, man. Like I got into a trade, a good trade, but you can only make, and it was like with 2 lots as well, but the market was moving quick at that point. You can only make a certain amount of money. You can make half of whatever.
It's the consistency rule. Yeah. If you make too much, you have to make way more.
Yeah. It's like $3,000 is the goal on the 50K accounts. You can make 1,500 in one day. Well, I made like 1,900 because I couldn't figure out how to close the trade. And the platform froze, and I'm like, Kyle, somebody, how do we link? Like, I'm trying to link this together, put on brackets. Like, I don't advise, if you were taking it seriously, you would never do what I did. Don't do it. But I was like, hey, it's $5. Let's figure it out, and then we'll like link a bunch of them together or whatever. So then I had to try to lose some money so that I was below 1,500 again. And then the thing froze again, and I lost like $300 too much. So then I had to turn around, and thanks to Kyle's guidance and a couple of other people in chat, they probably felt like they were talking to a child as I was trying to get these brackets set to just make the $200 or $300 I needed to get the balance to 1,500, back to 1,500 from whatever it was at. Like, it was at like 1,300 or 1,200 at that time. It was unbelievable, dude. But literally at one point I had lost the chart completely. I think I was in a trade and somehow closed the chart. So I have now I don't even know what's happening. I can see it on Sierra, and so then finally I just closed everything and somehow got a Dom to be there. And then I just traded off of that, but it was a train wreck. That was the ugly. And I felt like an idiot because all this is happening on a live stream with everybody. They're probably like, this guy's lost his mind. It was like, I don't know, 15, 20 people in there just watching me just fumble all over this platform trying to figure it out.
I got to thank you for that, though, because that clued me in that maybe I don't want to trade this account until maybe some of these get blown up.
Well, I think the whole deal was a stress test for them. And I think that trade I was in, if I'm not mistaken, maybe news was coming or had just came. That it was like the 10 a.m. news maybe or something like that, or somebody speaking or something. I don't know, but it was crazy. When it froze up, I was like, well, that's, and then I was trying to close the position I was like, well, I just need to close this. And like it was, nothing was happening. And it was weird. That's for sure. Yeah. Highly recommend just let everyone blow their accounts or pass them or whatever for a few days before if you want to make the most of those. This is not the time to do it, I don't think. So
yeah, okay. Let's see. Oh man, I had a pretty good week actually myself too. Not as good as last week. Then there was a bit of a mix of results, but let me kind of talk through it. So one day I nailed the execution, no reward. That was the day that I think I got slippage, and I cut it early because I knew that was a trigger for me. I had a couple days where I, traded to the plan and got rewarded for it. I think last week we talked about hitting like 300-point runners on 3 separate occasions, or 3 separate occasions hitting 100-point runners. I did the same thing this week, actually, even. But the awesome thing was going back and like after each of these days, like my emotional state was moderate. Like it wasn't swinging like it used to, like it did 2 months ago, 3 months ago. It used to be like a good day would have me motivated, like you talked about. I'd be like ready to go do a bunch of extra work, and after a bad day, I just want to crawl back into bed and forget it ever happened. And I think that a lot of this can be pointed towards my new journaling process, like getting a chance to kind of process those emotions and then being able to go back and review it. I think has really kind of highlighted some really cool things. My bad, as I'd mentioned, was on Thursday. Bad results. It was okay execution for the most part, so I'm not sure that I'd necessarily qualify this as bad, but there was one trade at the end of Thursday that was definitely ugly, and we kind of already touched on it. It increased the size. It was a pure revenge trade. But the benefit, or the awesome thing about even that ugly was after journaling, I discovered 2 more triggers that led me down that path. Like we had mentioned earlier, not getting scales off triggers me, and then stretching take profits when I'm down on the day. Those 2 things right there now I can point to as saying that these are things that are going to cause me to make bad decisions, and I can be on guard for that. So I'm really happy with the way this week went for me.
Yeah, you kind of have a couple weeks in a row here where you're, and I mean this in the best way. Like if you have like a piece of jewelry you know is like awesome, and you're like, I've never done this, but I imagine that you polish it or something. Like if it's gotten really dirty, and you're like, oh man, this thing's really starting to look good. Like as you're cleaning it up, you start to like notice again, like, man, this thing's awesome. I feel like that's like how I think of your trading lately is that you, yeah, you're like peeking around the corners to like the next leg of the journey. It's not going to be any easier than getting to where you are, but it's also not going to require any other magical skills or any other anything else of you. You know, it's doing the same things and continue to fine tune it. But you're like, I mean, I just 6 100-point runners, 5 100-point runners in 2 weeks is
pretty freaking pleased with that
yeah.
too.
I mean,
and what did I say after you checked in on me that Thursday? And like,
yep,
I was really happy. I normally that kind of day would really throw me off my game and ruin the rest of the afternoon for me. But that day was just like, didn't work today.
Yeah.
But you know what? I was still within one good trade.
Yeah, exactly.
To get back everything that happened that day.
Yep.
And that's a change for me.
Well, and I think you're to credit yourself for the work that you put into that. So it's been a fun process.
That you guys like it's yeah. But that's why I want to talk about the progress, because sometimes like you don't always have these moments where you can look back and say like, oh, this is definitely an improvement from where I was here.
Yeah.
And having a way to look back, I think, and try to quantify some of that, I think would be really helpful when you do start to feel like things are kind of stagnating or you don't think you're making progress, because you probably are.
Yeah. Definitely having a rhythm of reflecting on stuff is huge. You know, and people to talk to and trading around people that, you know, trading around the same people, they notice like, you know, they notice stuff that you wouldn't notice sometimes that you're like doing better. And then they say like, hey man, I noticed this. You're like, oh, you even think about that.
I tell you, it feels good too, just to get that little somebody else noticing, like when you reached out and was like, dude, you've been doing pretty good these last few days. Like, yeah, I have.
Thank you, when you're sitting in a like 70 points of runner and I'm already scaled out and I'm like, man, once upon a time I was the one sitting on these big runners, and now I'm just, you know, paying myself and sitting back in the chair like a boss. And I think maybe we need to just start having Kyle be the one that runs the stream in the morning, so he can just screen share. He's the one over here slaying it. So, well, someone mentioned something kind to me this week about even what you said, like what there was one day I took a few stops in a row live, and you know, ended up being a fine day, like part of this, you know, great week. They were just saying that seeing someone else take a loss, but seeing, and not to like be like, oh no, I'm so great, but like, and seeing the fact that like I'm not like coming unglued on the screen. I'm not throwing on 15 contracts for the next trade. I'm not, you know, freaking out about it. I'm just continuing to watch and execute in places that make sense. Even that kind of thing can help someone realize, oh, so being a somewhat okay trader or a decent trader it doesn't just mean that every time you click the button, money flies into your account. Like sometimes you have
Right.
a few trades here or there that don't work out. That's fine. I mean, that's part of variance, right? But the biggest
Mhm.
thing is to stay, like, keep it cool, like you're talking about, and just, hey, I executed great today. Didn't get the reward I normally would, but tomorrow, a reasonable day, and everything is all is right with the world again.
Yep. What do you say we do some bold predictions and wrap this sucker up?
Let's predict boldly.
All right. So what do we have? So on the calendar, we've got the initial jobless claims coming in on Thursday. It looks like the biggest event that we've got. I think we should try to predict that. So the median forecast is coming in at 216,000, and the previous release was 212,000. I'm going to let you guys talk me through what you're thinking.
What is the forecast?
Forecast is 216,000. Previous was 212,000.
So, So are we going to go off of what's released or the revision?
We got to go off of what's released because the revision won't be out before we record again, right?
Yeah, probably not. I don't really actually.
Yeah, I think that takes like a month.
So yeah, probably not. So they're estimating 212.
They're estimating 216. It was
212 last time, estimating 216. I think that it'll be a miss. I think unemployment claims will be worse than if forecasted by probably, I'm going to say 218 will be the unemployment claim number, 218K.
So that's pretty much in line. I think that's
Okay,
close
then
enough.
give me 220 for the win.
4K away. Whoa,
All right.
that's crazy.
No, so bold. Banks, what do you? No.
It's not like they ever miss it by that much usually, so.
Fair enough.
It seems like a lot of these have been good lately, though.
Have they?
Going off of previous.
I've been watching Activision and like a bunch of other companies that have been announcing more and more layoffs. I want to shoot higher, and I'm gonna go with 276. I think
276.
Mm-hmm.
Good Lord.
Yep.
So
I'm
almost
gonna
the
putting it
highest.
out there.
Almost the highest in 2 years. It'll be second highest.
That's a little high.
No, I'm not want to talk you off the ledge here. I mean, do what you got to do.
It's a show.
It's a show.
I'm sticking with it.
Okay.
I'm not doing this to be accurate. I'm doing this to be bold.
I'm gonna go 216. So let's go. I think it's gonna come in under, and I think it's gonna be 204.
Okay. So you're
Okay.
you're 9K under or whatever.
And you're giving him shit for being 4K over.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys both went over. I had to go under.
Well, I can go the same amount. Let me change mine to the same amount over as Banks was under. So then we've kind of got the over, under, and then your big miss.
Well, then I should take a big whiff on the other end. Who?
Yeah, we can do whatever.
No, I'm just kidding. So what is your new total now?
So 218. You said
225, right?
Yeah, it's 225.
225. Okay. All right.
So to be fair, I was gonna go with 235 when we were kind of ballparking this, and then you guys both went over. So I just want that to be a little side note.
Oh,
that I was
here we
gonna
go.
do 235. But then
I'll write it in there.
went
I'll write it in there.
you went 276, and I'm like, well, I can't do 235. That's crazy.
If you would have went over, I would have gone under and probably did 176. I just like that 76 number. I feel like I've seen it on there before.
176. Lord, that'd be like almost record lows.
Is this not the one that moves around as much as I think it is, or am I thinking of a different jobs report?
I think you're thinking of
Am I thinking of Jolts?
Maybe you're thinking of a different one because this one hovers.
It's pretty consistent.
It's pretty consistent.
Too.
All right. Well,
But hey, you know what? You be bold. You go ahead and be bold.
I'm going to be way off. That's fine. We'll let you guys be the winners. But I think that's going to do it for today. 2 good predictions, 1 shit one. I'd like to say thanks to Baba and Banks for joining me on this fine Friday evening. And thank you to everybody listening who stuck around to the end. Please, please, please show our panelists some love. Check out those links in the show notes. Remember to check out the new combined Discord where you can trade with Baba and Banks live every Friday morning on the free side. You can listen in live to these recordings. You can even share your most personal thoughts with the community in our new journaling channel. We'll be back soon with another exciting episode, hopefully as impressive as being too bullish in this market. Until then, share this with your friends like it's 4-day-old Valentine candy that nobody likes in your home. It might not help them, but at least you won't have to deal with it anymore.
This podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. It does not constitute financial or investment advice and should not be construed as such. The hosts, guests, and contributors of this podcast are not licensed financial advisors, brokers, or professionals. Any trading or investment decisions made based on the content of this podcast are solely at the listener's discretion and risk. Trading and investing in financial markets carry inherent risks, and past performance is not indicative of future results. Listeners should conduct their own research and seek advice from qualified financial professionals before making any financial decisions. The views, opinions, and information shared in this podcast are those of the individual contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the podcast creators or associated organizations.
Produced by China Shop Productions.